Hi, I'm Seamless, and this is the 40th 75K tutorial. I've got 35 more of these to do, and this one was requested by Koxey. You saw it in the title. And this is this sound. And here's my attempt at it. It's pretty much the sound, just minus all the clicky percussive bits that are kind of around all the hits. And boy, are there plenty of those. But I didn't do them because they're just percussive hits. They're not really part of the sound. They're just layered in there on or around a hit to make it feel interesting. I also didn't do this fill bass because it's not the same sound. You can tell it's not the same sound by looking at this and just kind of seeing that like these harmonics are kind of just there on top of it, and they ain't doing it. So what I got is a citrus. That's all it is. So people, and me included, when they're going into the sound, the first hurdle you have to get over is that it's not perfectly harmonic. It's related, it's together, it's in the same key, it's in the right key and all that, but it's not all root and multiples and all that stuff like that. What I mean by that is that this is a take on an idea that I refer to as the dubstep bass, where you take two sine waves, you put them into a distortion, and one of the sine waves is 1 or 4 octaves higher than the root. You do that, and you get that kind of screechy, howly bass, and if you modulate the root, you can kind of change the intensity of that whole thing, and it alters the tone and all that stuff. And this is that, except that instead of it being 4 octaves higher, even though this says it's 4 octaves higher, it's 4 octaves and a third. It is those actual harmonics. The actual harmonic position is 1/3 higher than the root note. And that's what gives us this kind of uncertain feel, because it feels like it's being FM. You could probably accomplish a similar sound with FM, but it's a lot easier to do it this way because it feels like the higher harmonics are wobbling around or whatever. And what they were doing is they're kind of being ring modulated. They're being AM'd a little bit by the fact that it's being crushed to distortion by the root. Not all of them are doing this. Not all of them are doing it all the time. And my own particular version is a little bit a problem with this, because if you look at the hit here, it really feels like only this one is doing that, at least as hard as what I'm doing, and the rest of them are kind of moving around and that kind of stuff. But you can control that by changing the level of the first oscillator, if that's something you want to do. And a lot of the differences between the various versions of the sound, like in the song, because every hit kind of feels different, is the layered stuff. You know, the various like percussive business. That's one deal. But then it's also just changing that particular stuff, like the volume of the root oscillator, and also probably the levels of the unison. The unison had a huge role to play to make the sound sound the way it did. So anyway, the first two, it's a root, an octave, and a third, which I moved the thing a third by going into the pitch and then moving the envelope dot to be a third. So I moved that one. To move any of these, this one I didn't move, I don't think. Yeah. So you normally get this. I just get rid of the envelope, turn it on, put it in the middle, because the middle is the root, actual note, and then you go 1, 2, 3. Now it's a third. It's a lot easier than trying to move the ratio around to be semitones. It's not super well designed to do that. This 6th guy here is FMing number 2, but it comes off really fast. I did that to kind of just added the slightest bit of like a bell kind of contact, and that's why it's the wrong ratio as well. Instead of being ratio 2, it's ratio 7, which is not even a multiple of 2. So that's why it sounds like that. It's like super subtle. It's barely noticeable, honestly. Oscillator 3 here is 4 octaves, 2 octaves. 2 octaves higher and 3 octaves higher. So those harmonics are kind of just below it, but they're very, 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 very quiet. I didn't even know they were there until I looked at the graph here and I saw, oh wait, there's a little thing happening there. Now I'm just noticing all this business down here. I wonder what the hell is happening. Barely noticeable, but it's super hard to hear unless you're looking for it. It's the sub messing around, I guess, or it's part of the weird percussion. There's a lot of weird stuff in this track. A lot of very simple things that are stuff you wouldn't think to do, and that's kind of been Skrillex's calling card for the last couple of years, is just doing deceptively simple and very elegant things, which is just so cool. And it pisses me off to no end when I It doesn't think to be something that I think is interesting, and someone's like, hey, you should try doing it. I'm like, okay, and I do it. I'm like, what is happening? That's pretty much been my experience with Skrillex for the last while. Unlike before, where Skrillex's thing was like, you listened to the sound and you knew that you didn't know what the hell he was doing. Wasn't those fun days when like you didn't have to think about how hard something was? You just knew it was hard instead of being tricked into being difficult. Also, 5 is the sub. And the sub is just a sine wave and a couple of the first harmonics, but these aren't square harmonics, these are sol harmonics. And the sub is in here. You probably don't want to hide the sub in here. You probably want to separate it, but it's just there to make it all feel complete. Into the first filter, which is the distortion, just wave shaping, is all it's doing. Into the next filter by this next knob, saying it's going to the next filter. This is a high pass filter, and that's what this automation is up here. A little subtle, because honestly, the sort of shortness of it is being created by the volume automation, which is on the filter, the first filter. Just straight doing that. And then it's going, this guy's going out, and it has effects on it. And the effects are just reverb and delay. Delay is important, because if you look at the thing here, you can kind of see little ghosty bits of like what looks like the same automation, the same motion kind of existing next to it, and that's just delay. It's a quieter version of the thing that happened before it. It's an echo. And there's a lot of other like rhythmical things happening here that makes all every various hit uncertain. And that has to do with I've just realized what the rhythm is now. It's a lot simpler than I thought it was, but it has a lot to do with all the various percussive sounds hitting around the hit, like hats and kind of lower or higher frequencies, almost like tom sounding things. There's a lot of that going on, and echoes. Echoes are well, those are things that be kind of annoying to line up, but not necessarily difficult, which is why I didn't try to do it, because it's just, y'all know how to make beats. What else? Well, that's really all that's happening in this. Oh, unison. So, on the front, I'm doing unison, and that's really making it feel the way it does, because without it, now, because I'm doing all this in one thing, the sub is actually being unison too, which you really don't want. So in the unison index mapping tab, I actually went down to the volume side and made it so that 4 of the 6 voices aren't even on. And the reason why I would normally just have one of them, but because it's an even number of voices, I just really like how it sounds with 6 voices. With an even number of voices, I put these 2 on, which makes it a little bit better than if it were actually a thing. So the panning isn't so bad; that's not a big issue. But like, it's literally phasing against itself, which is causing it to kind of be not as representative as if it were just out like that. So that's a bit of fun there. But messing around with the pitch and the phase gets you some neat tones with the sound. So screwing around with that is pretty neat. And that is enough to basically be the sound. So there's high pass automation there, a volume automation here, the dubstep bass orientation of root and 4-octave sine wave, but the 4-octave sine wave is also plus a third. Tiny bit of bell automation. I call it bell, but that's just because it's on the harmonic, inharmonic, one of those words. FM, which turns it to harmonics to be in the correct position, which causes it to sound metallic. It's off. It's got some volume automation to be off really fast. It only happens on the impact. Extra harmonics kind of on the bottom there, also volume automated, but kind of slowly come on and tail off a little bit to just kind of fill out the mid-high range. And then sub. And that's all, folks. This is closer than I thought I was going to get, but not as close as I want to get. There's still some mysteries to this. And it's probably just real simple stuff that I'm missing because I've just been hammering myself at this for like an hour. And it's a little bit harder than I thought it'd be. But what isn't these days? Anyway, This citrus, well, actually, I guess this FLP will be available to download in the description of this video. If you would like to make a request for yourself, please do so. Please do so in the Reddit thread linked in the description of this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And as usual, have a nice day. I wonder how out of sync my voice is.